From the moment we are born, we are sold a comforting lie. Work hard, put in the hours, and eventually you will escape your circumstances. But look around you. If hard work was the secret to wealth, the richest people in the world would be dishwashers and construction workers. In 1974, a boy was born in a slum in New Delhi. He washed dishes in an illegal restaurant to survive. Today, his net worth is estimated at hundreds of millions of dollars. His name is Naval Ravikant. He didn't escape poverty by working harder than you. He escaped by realizing that the system is rigged. He realized that if you are trading your time for money, you are simply renting out your life. Today, we decode the dark psychology of the poverty trap and the 5 philosophical levers Naval used to break the matrix. Let's begin. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that has no name in the English language, but that millions of people feel every Sunday evening, the quiet dread before another week of selling hours. In 1844, a 26-year-old philosopher named Karl Marx identified the mechanism behind this dread with surgical precision. He called it alienated labor, the condition in which a worker becomes estranged not just from the product of their work, but from the very act of living. When your time is owned by another entity, your life is no longer yours. You become a machine wearing a human face. But here is what Marx did not fully articulate, and what Naval understood instinctively from the slums of Delhi. The poverty trap is not merely economic, it is cognitive. The most insidious lie the system tells you is that labor time equals value. That if you simply work longer, harder, with more sweat and sacrifice, the ledger will eventually balance in your favor. It will not. Time is a finite resource. It depletes at a constant rate, regardless of effort, regardless of loyalty, regardless of how many nights you stayed late. When you trade finite time for money, you are engaging in a transaction with an asymmetric ceiling. Time is a finite resource. It depletes at a constant rate, regardless of effort, regardless of loyalty, regardless of how many nights you stayed late. When you trade finite time for money, you are engaging in a transaction with an asymmetric ceiling, a structural impossibility built into the transaction itself. Wealth is what you accumulate while you sleep. Labor is what disappears the moment you stop. Compound interest, the 8th wonder of the world, as it has been called, requires a seed that grows in your absence, a tree you planted that keeps bearing fruit whether you are watching it or not. Without equity, without ownership, without assets that breathe and multiply on their own, you are not building wealth. You are performing an endless Sisyphean act, rolling the boulder up the hill, watching it fall, climbing again. The first lever Naval pulled was this. He refused to be paid only for his time. He began asking a different question. Not, how do I work harder, but how do I build something that works for me while I rest? The philosopher Carl Jung spent decades studying what he called the process of individuation, the painful, lifelong journey of becoming fully and precisely the person you alone were built to be, not the person your parents needed, not the person the market currently rewards, you. Naval translates this ancient psychological wisdom into economic language with a single devastating phrase: productize yourself. What does this mean? It means locating what he calls specific knowledge, the rare, unteachable expertise that lives at the precise intersection of your obsessions, your natural aptitudes, and the world's needs. Specific knowledge is not something you find in a curriculum. You cannot enroll in a course titled "Become Irreplaceable." It is discovered the way artists discover their voice, by following what feels like play to you but looks like suffering to everyone else. If you can be trained into a role in 6 months, you can be replaced by someone who accepts a lower salary. Your labor becomes a commodity, and commodities, by definition, race to the bottom. But when you find that strange, specific intersection, when you become the person who thinks in a way that cannot be easily replicated, something extraordinary happens. You gain access to zero marginal cost leverage. A construction worker builds one house. They sell one unit of labor, one time. A writer publishes one essay. It gets read 1,000,000 times. The writer does not work 1,000,000 times harder. The leverage is structural, embedded in the medium itself. Code runs while you sleep. A podcast plays in earbuds across 23 time zones simultaneously. A product once built sells itself. Competition is for losers. If you are competing, you are not yet doing the thing only you can do. The second lever is this: stop optimizing to be useful to the system. Start optimizing to become so singular that the system has no choice but to negotiate with you on your terms. The most dangerous economic position is to be easily replaced. The most powerful is to be genuinely irreplaceable. And once you have that specific knowledge, once you have built that singular identity, the question becomes, how do you multiply it? The answer, Naval argues, is leverage, not financial leverage alone. Code, media, capital, people. The 4 horsemen of wealth creation in the digital age. None of them require you to trade additional hours. All of them sleep while you sleep and work while you work. There is a word we reach for when we cannot explain success. Luck. It is the word we use to protect our egos from the discomfort of studying someone else's advantage too closely. Naval disagrees, systematically, philosophically, and with the precision of an engineer. He identifies not one kind of luck, but 4 evolutionary strata. The first is blind luck, a cosmic accident. You are born into the right family, in the right country, in the right century. You cannot engineer this, you can only acknowledge it. The second is luck through motion, the ancient law of probability. The more experiments you run, the more surface area you expose to fortune. The person who launches 10 businesses fails 9 times, and the 10th hits. Luck here is a function of velocity and volume. You manufacture your own probability. The third is where neuroscience enters, luck through sensitivity. Deep inside your brainstem lies a structure called the reticular activating system, the RAS. It acts as your brain's filter, screening the millions of sensory inputs that bombard you every second, surfacing only what it has been trained to recognize as relevant. When you develop deep knowledge in a specific domain, you recalibrate your RAS. You begin to perceive opportunities in spaces where others see only noise. This is not mysticism, it is neurology dressed in the language of fortune. The fourth, and most rare, is luck through singularity. This is when you no longer chase opportunities, when your reputation, your body of work, your character, when all of it reaches such a precise and unmistakable frequency that opportunities cease to require pursuit. They arrive, investors call you, collaborators seek you out. The market orients toward you like a compass toward magnetic north. You stop being a player in the game of luck. You become the gravity well itself. In the age of leverage, a single decision made by the right person can create more value than 10,000 hours of manual effort. A CEO who improves their decision accuracy by a mere 10% does not create 10% more value. They create orders of magnitude more, because every decision at scale is amplified by the machinery beneath it. This is why Naval calls judgment, not hustle, not discipline, not passion, the ultimate form of wealth creation. And judgment, he argues, is built on a foundation most humans will spend their entire lives avoiding: radical honesty. The psychologist Leon Festinger described cognitive dissonance, the mental anguish that arises when our beliefs collide with contradicting evidence, and he documented the human brain's extraordinary talent for resolving that anguish, not by updating the belief, but by distorting the evidence. We don't just lie to others, we are, with stunning creativity, consistently dishonest with ourselves. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Richard Feynman. Confirmation bias is not a flaw in the human operating system. It is a feature, one designed to protect self-esteem, to maintain social cohesion, to keep us from the paralysis of constant self-doubt. But in the context of high-stakes decision-making, it is lethal. It causes investors to hold losing positions long past reason. It causes founders to scale broken products. It causes individuals to remain in careers, relationships, and identities that ceased serving them years ago. True judgment, Naval argues, requires the courage to perform what the Stoics called the view from above, to step outside your own narrative and examine it with the cold neutrality of an auditor reviewing someone else's accounts. To say, what if I am wrong? What does the evidence look like if I remove my ego from the equation entirely? It is not a comfortable practice. It is, at times, a devastating one, but it is the price of clarity. And in a world where leverage amplifies every decision, clarity is worth more than any credential. Naval has said this plainly. 99% of all effort will be wasted. Most experiments fail. Most businesses fail. Most creative work disappears without leaving a mark on the world. But this is not tragedy. This is data. The 18th century mathematician Thomas Bayes gave us a framework that quietly governs how rational minds navigate uncertainty. Bayesian updating is the practice of revising your beliefs, not abandoning them, not doubling down on them out of pride, but incrementally, rationally updating them in light of new evidence. Every failed experiment is not a verdict on your worth. It is a narrowing of the probability space. It eliminates one more wrong answer from the map. The scientist does not weep over a failed hypothesis. They record the result and move closer to truth. The difference between people who build wealth and people who merely survive is not the number of times they succeed. It is the number of times they fail and methodically extract the signal from the wreckage instead of simply grieving the loss. 5 levers. 5 choices that the boy from New Delhi made in a city that had written his ending before he could speak. He refused to rent out his life 1 hour at a time. He found the knowledge that felt like play. He manufactured luck through relentless motion and ruthless self-cultivation. He shattered the mirror of self-deception, and he embraced failure as the only honest teacher that remains when every comforting illusion has been stripped away. The matrix is not made of code, it is made of assumptions. Assumptions about what your time is worth, about what you deserve, about what is possible for someone like you. And here is the only question that matters as this video ends. When you wake up tomorrow morning, will you spend the day renting out your life or building the lever that will one day move your world? Write it in the comments. Not a vague aspiration, something specific. One way you will begin to productize yourself this week. The person you are in the comments section right now is not the audience. They are the accountability mirror. And here is the only question that matters as this video ends. When you wake up tomorrow morning, will you spend the day renting out your life or building the lever that will one day move your world? I'll see you in the next one. Stay sovereign. Write it in the comments. Not a vague aspiration, something specific. One way you will begin to productize yourself this week. The person you are in the comments section right now is not the audience. They are the accountability mirror.